with a handshake.
Thank you.
That
Good.
goes, this is the way it goes
Yeah,
between the bank and the customer when the loan was being asked and being secured, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
now,
the
what's
way it
gone
goes.
wrong?
Well, it's there are many factors.
It's no longer that handshake. Why?
Yes, it's no longer the handshake. So many things have happened. So many things happen in business. And sometimes projections don't really go the way it is planned. The LCCI has confirmed that, there are two categories of debtors. There are the ones that are chronic and are not performing, not because of any other, but because they just don't want to pay. Those are the very bad ones. But we also have the ones that have the issues of whose business has been affected by the various issues within the Nigerian economy. And that is where we are saying tread with caution. Don't throw the baby away with the bathwater. Do it cautiously. And then this name and shame thing, we've done it before. Let's ask ourselves the question, did it actually work the way we planned it to? So that's why we're saying do it with caution. Don't just put everybody in one big basket of chronic and bad debtors.
We have a history, a very good history of being very bad when it comes to loan delinquency in Nigeria. And I'm sure you remember the days of the Sonny Abacha's failed bank decree, was it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. When about bank directors, former CBN president back then, and bank customers were thrown into detention, billions of their assets confiscated. That was under the military rule, as it were, isn't it? Yeah, and thereafter, we just had about 24 banks collapse in one single day. That's something that worries the current central bank, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's worrying. But then, if you remember also, the problem was more within the bank than outside the bank. We had insider lending. We had a lot of issues. The normal procedures were not followed.
Lending to directors without collaterals.
So the problem then was more of poor corporate governance. And
within the banking system.
Within the banking system. And I think to a large extent that was curbed. But it's funny that even with all the KYC and everything, we still have this recurring decimal. So something is wrong somewhere that we're also not attacking. And that's why the chamber is coping up. You see, the chamber has not just the banks as members. We also have the manufacturers, the industry, and everything. And that's why
services companies.
Exactly. At every point in time, we are looking at all the issues from all angles and looking at areas where there should be some kind of mutual understanding. And we don't think this solution of this issue of publishing and shaming people, and then you're going to publish the name of the organization, you're going to publish the names of the directors, you're going to publish their directors, their subsidiaries. It's looking unwieldy, and it's not looking. Then we also have to look at the legal implications of everything they want to do, or else you just find it. Then some of the loans themselves that have gone bad may be a kind of controversy between even the lender and the bank. You get my point? So they need to be cautious. You don't just throw everything in one fell swoop and say, look, these are people that are owing us. You should not give them credit again. We don't think it is the right thing to do.
How did we get to this position quite so soon? In the last quarter of 2009, the Central Bank of Nigeria published under the Emir, now Emir of Kano, Lamido Sanusi, published the same list when Intercontinental, Oceanic, and the rest of them were being taken to the cleaners, as it were. So how, within 5-year period or thereabout, suddenly we're back at the point at which we have to threat, to publish, to name and shame.
Personally, I also think that the fact that we're at this junction again shows that we have not learned any lessons from what has happened before. Banks are supposed to go through some procedures before giving out credit. And if these procedures are done, we didn't expect that we're going to be having increase in the volume of bad loans that we have. We thought, well, we'll be servicing the bad ones that are there, and then we'll be more careful going forward. But from all indication, that has not happened. So there's a need to also look at the bank, the system itself within the bank, and see what they are doing wrong and what they are doing right. We didn't mean to correct. So the CBN needs to also look within the bank and see what are the banks doing right and what are they not doing right.
Okay. Now let's look at one issue that's been mentioned over and over again, at least almost my entire career in business journalism, which is foreclosure issue. such that we can take some preventive measures before getting to this level at which we're doing name and shame, in which you can say, look, if this is going bad, banks can take remedial steps before it gets to name and shame on the pages of newspapers. So where do you think this should be? The administration of justice within the banking system? Do we need a commercial court? We've talked about this for nearly 40 years. It had never materialized. And I know you folks, one of those advocates of commercial courts that should come very quickly, and a very strong bankruptcy law, liquidation, whatever.
Yeah, if you look at the LCCI position paper, one of the positions we postulated is that, look, there is a kind of, there's supposed to be a backup for these loans. There's supposed to be collateral and everything. What happened? Are they not there? Were there not sufficient quality control done to make sure the collateral are there so that if it goes bad, you go for this. But then the second thing is, we've also found out, I've also been in the banking industry, and we've had cases in court for so long of a bank trying to recover its money. You see cases dragging up to five years. In fact, some of the banks that have gone on that still have cases in court till today, taken over by the NDIC. And that is why we've advocated for a bank that will expediently take over the issues of a court that will expediently take over the issues of
commercial
laws. Exactly, because then you mix these commercial issues with other civil and criminal cases,
the Federal High
and
Court,
it drags on and on and on. And then sometimes, I know some of the lawyers have even complained about some of the competence of some of the judges in handling commercial issues. So there's a need for us to look at that, especially because of where we find ourselves today. I think there's now a dire need, and organizations such as ours, even the CBN, should kind of back this move that we have commercial courts in major business centers in Nigeria where issues like this can be handled without any delay and issues of having to go with
you folks have the largest chamber of commerce in Nigeria. You have such a huge number. The portfolio is very huge. As you said earlier on, banks on one hand, services company, trade commerce, and whatever you. I'm sure since the bank started publishing these full-page advertorials, warning, 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 I'm sure some of your members perhaps would have tried to engage you at some point to say, what are they telling you about July the 31st deadline?
Well, what they are telling us is what is in the first part of our paper, of our position paper. What has led to this problem? Why are people, especially the risk sector, why are they lending and they are not paying back? We've had issues about the business environment. We've had issues about the fall in the Naira. We've had issues about the insecurity in some part of the country. I'll give you an example, Bosin. An organization takes a credit from a bank to start a project in the northeast of the country, like maybe 6-7 years ago. Can you imagine what will be happening to the organization now? Caused by a problem that it cannot control. And the banks will continue to ask for its money. That's just a typical example of some of the things that are going on in some of these industries. We've also had some who actually took these facilities to engage in businesses that are essentially powered or essentially affected by the fall in the Naira. So there's a large discrepancy from where they were and where they are now. And then the banks are not willing to negotiate. So these are issues that have been raised, and that's why the LCCI had to come up, because our own role is to look at issues from various perspectives.
So the natural question I should be asking you is, has the LCCI engaged the central bank, Godwin Emefiele, the governor, and say, hold on a minute, on behalf of 100 or 200 members, worth XY billions of dollars business in Lagos, Nigeria, could you please listen to this or read this?
Yeah, we have. Because what we do before it goes to the press, it also goes to the organization it is being addressed to. That's what we do. But sometimes you have to make sure you make the noise about it. If you don't, it's the likelihood that somebody will pretend it has not happened. So we do engage, of course, the central bank and the LCCI. We have a very cordial relationship. We normally have these dialogue sessions that we discuss issues, and this we have done. But then there is also a need for even our members and the larger business community to say that yes, the LCCI has a position on this. and this is the position of the LCCI.
One last question for you. The central bank is sitting with the federal government on one side. As far as the state government debts are concerned, the commercial loans to the banks, and they're trying to restructure that. Perhaps they will put it into an FGM bond kind of portfolio. Now, do you think that some of your members in the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, companies, whether they're SMEs or big cap companies, would need to sit down with the central bank and with the bankers, the lenders themselves, and say, could you please restructure some of these loans?
I think that is there's no gainsaying about that. It has to happen. That has to happen. That's why we're saying wholesome publishing of names.
Don't name and shame yet.
It is not the solution to this problem. I think there's a need for people to sit down and negotiate. And look, yes, I agree. I have this. This is the reason. What can we do? How can we move forward? Sometimes we even need to help the person owing you,
the
borrower, to empower him to pay.
To remain in business,
exactly,
and
because
continue to support the bigger economy.
Exactly. Because if it was possible for you to use the collateral to get back your money, we won't be back to the issue of naming and shaming. So there's a need for you to also work with that person and make sure he is in the position to pay you back.
All right. Thank you very much for coming to give us your side of the story. Don't do it is the story. Let's end it with the same handshake.
Yes, I hope the banks and the customers too.
They will shake like this at the end of it with the central bank, bringing everybody's hands together like the midwife that the central bank always is. Thank you very much for coming.
You're welcome.
Dele Alimi, who is the director in charge of membership, trade and promotion at the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Okay, we'll keep President Buhari straight in our sights. That's the country's CEO. He's been talking up the economy, not just the insurgents in the Northeast. He'll be bringing back $2.1 billion, not yet in cash, but the World Bank is ready to help us rebuild the northern part of Nigeria, the eastern part of it, that is. What do we need to do? But that's not the story for today. What's happening in the next 15 minutes is the July 28 Capital Market Committee meeting, the 10-year roadmap for the capital market. That's Guazo's agenda, the new CEO at the Securities and Exchange Commission. One of his directors joining us live from our Abuja studios. Stick around after the break.